Attempts being made to vest powers of the Monetary Board and Central Bank with the Finance Minister through the foreign exchange bill. Allegations by activists. Is it possible for aircraft to land on the renovated runway of the Bandaranaike airport? Japan appoints Envoy to coordinate sustainable development in Sri Lanka. Borussia Dortmund football team bus hit by explosions.
A very good evening to you. Welcome to Primetime News, coming to you live and direct from the Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. I'm Bernadine Jayasinghe.
I'm Chaturang Hapwara. Let's take a look at the stories we have in detail.
Chief Cabinet Secretary of Japan Yoshihide Suga informed Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe that a special advisor to the Japanese Prime Minister Hiroto Izumi will be appointed as special envoy to Sri Lanka. The envoy will coordinate initiatives in relation to sustainable development in Sri Lanka.
The meeting between Prime Minister Wickremesinghe and Chief Cabinet Secretary of Japan Yoshihide Suga centered around naval movements in the Indian Ocean and maritime security. The Sri Lankan delegation had assured that the island nation will not support any military intervention whilst committed to peace and security in the region. Attention was also drawn towards the digitization of television broadcasts in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has also assured its participation in Expo 2015 in Osaka, Japan. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe met with Japanese Finance Minister Taro Aso, who is also the Deputy Prime Minister. The Japanese Finance Minister had praised Sri Lanka's slow but stable drive forward and promised support for sustainable projects following a proper study on development planning. Attention was also drawn towards the establishment of a Sri Lanka-Japan Technical University and the development of the Colombo North Port. Japanese Minister of Defense Tomomi Inada has informed Prime Minister Wickremesinghe that a common understanding must be reached in the task of coast conservation and Indian Ocean region security, while building close relations between the Sri Lanka Army and the Japan Self-Defense Forces. It was decided to further discuss the matter during the visit to Japan by the commander of the Sri Lanka Navy in June.
On to a story that News First has been closely following. 3 petitions have been submitted to the Supreme Court against the foreign exchange bill. Sri Lankans are using the workforce of the country and keeping their valuable dollar earnings in other countries, while our people suffer in other countries and send money into the country. We are telling these people to bring this money into the country and they will receive benefits for it. Whenever we try to do something good, there are people who stand against it. They cannot stop this.
The foreign exchange bill was tabled in Parliament on Friday. Submitting a petition before court yesterday, Attorney-at-Law Darshan Verenduage requested the Supreme Court to determine whether the bill or articles of the bill were inconsistent with the Constitution. He points out that powers of the Central Bank and the Monetary Board are being concentrated in the hands of the Minister of Finance.
The Central Bank and the Monetary Board has a very important role in maintaining financial stability in the country. However, with this bill, they will not be able to do anything without first obtaining the approval of the Minister of Finance. There will be a concentration of power in the hands of the Finance Minister, which will lead to unexpected and foreseeable consequences. This new bill will also seriously affect the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, Convention on the Suppression of Terrorist Financing and the Bribery Act.
Here are some of the controversial clauses that have been highlighted through the petition that was submitted yesterday. Clause 8 authorizes other categories, classes and or persons to deal in foreign exchange. This means the Central Bank and Monetary Board will not set the exchange rates. Clause 9, Articles 1, 2, 3 and 4 as well as Clause 11, Article 1. Articles have been drafted to enable the Minister of Finance to have an upper hand and or unwarranted control over the affairs, powers and or duties of the Central Bank, and to negate the entrenched provision of the Monetary Law Act No. 58 of 1949. Clause 13. Board of Inquiry to be appointed through the Foreign Exchange Act will be partial as long as the appointment, remuneration and the power of removal is vested with the Minister of Finance. Clause 22 has no binding force on the Minister of Finance to comply with advice of the Monetary Board in the event of a potential threat to the financial stability of Sri Lanka. Attorney at Law Nagananda Kodituaku as well as members of the joint opposition also filed petitions with the Supreme Court today against the Foreign Exchange Bill.
The new bill makes the Monetary Board almost irrelevant, and it gives kind of a veto power to the Minister of Finance over the Monetary Board. Remember, Mr. Ravi Karunayaka is an individual who was charged before the High Court of Colombo for money laundering charge. He is not on an indictment before the High Court. He is never exonerated. He is simply discharged without a trial. Now, Attorney General has a liberty to charge him on a fresh indictment, on an amended indictment within a matter of 20 years, not just 2 years lapse. The Prime Minister and the people around him, these people attempts to abuse and the power concentrated in the office of the Executive President. They are trying to take it away, deny such power to the Executive President, and also to vest this power in the office of the Prime Minister and the Cabinet of Ministers, few hands. Now, why they are doing it? They know exactly if they hold a presidential or parliamentary election, they have no chance whatsoever. None of the political parties in this country, they do not observe democracy. The United National Party is the best example. This particular individual who lost probably 25 or 26 or 27 elections, still hang on. This is a very sickening state of affairs in a political party. In my opinion, this particular individual should have been out of politics more than 2 decades ago. Rajapaksa wouldn't have been able to do incur such a huge damage if there had been a powerful opposition leader.
We know how Sri Lankan politicians act when they are vested with unlimited powers. There is no need to create an all-powerful Minister of Finance. Concentrating such powers in one individual will cause serious problems. There should be a clear study done on how this bill would impact the country. The people have realized that this is being done by Ranil Wickremesinghe and Ravi Karunayaka. After this is passed, these commissions that they have appointed and the investigations into acts such as the bond scam will be completely useless. When all the powers are vested with the Minister of Finance, then all of this will become useless. There should be transparency. Do not commit acts of wrong because the people are waiting behind you.
Minister of Finance Ravi Karunayaka convened a media briefing today.
There is a truth to that. There is a delay because we have received a number of opinions. They have all been presented to Parliament. When they say there is no objection, we can start.
The minister expressed views regarding the delay in enacting the computer system at the Inland Revenue Department. He informed that the proposal is to obtain the computers through an operating lease. However, there has been objections concerning security issues. One of them being that at the end of the lease, the service provider may take the hard drives. The ICTA has advised that the Inland Revenue Department could pay the service provider in rupees and keep the computer along with the disk. The minister added that he instructed the secretary to start an investigation.
We are happy that the minister has responded. The computers need to be owned by the Inland Revenue Department. Since the ownership will not be with the department when it is purchased on an operating lease, there will be issues when they are taken out of the department for maintenance. The information is sensitive information of the taxpayers. We are asking the minister and the secretary to provide us with 1,000 computers which will belong to the department. 2 European Union parliamentarians who are visiting Sri Lanka upon an invitation by several organizations addressed a media briefing in Colombo today.
In general, I think I'm very much in favour of GSP Plus being granted to Sri Lanka. We want that, and I think, what I've seen in Sri Lanka is a lot is happening, and things are moving in the right direction. But, we want to make sure that this movement keeps continuing.
Well, I think that Sri Lanka will get the GSP because we cannot deny that this is a very tool for developing countries, but we have to put conditions, no? European Commission has been very open to give the GSP Plus, but we in the European Parliament, that is the real democratic body of the European Union, that the trade policy should become also a development policy,
Were the modifications at the Bandaranaike International Airport successful? Will the BIA lose its certification from the International Civil Aviation Organization?
The Bandaranaike International Airport was closed for 3 months from the 6th of January this year. It was later revealed that Sri Lankan Airlines incurred an approximate loss of $40 million during the time the runway was shut down for refurbishment. The project was to broaden the 45-meter main runway to 75 meters and to relay the carpet to fix the lighting system as well as to relay carpet on the part that was in a dilapidated state. The initial estimate for the project stood at 7.2 billion rupees.
To land and take off flights, the runway needs to be at an exceptional standard. There are several international regulations pertaining to this. The ICAO inspects our runway, the companies which ensure the passengers obtain these reports. The airline companies do not land their flights here if the runway is not in accordance with proper standards. It's difficult to land an A380 flight here. They had tried this once. The runway needs to be broadened. We will do that as well.
According to the International Civil Aviation Organization, the runway should be 75 meters wide to receive the 4F category certificate.
With the laying of the carpet, we have widened the area that is identified as shoulders of the runway. The actual width was 45 meters. In addition, there were shoulders that were 30 meters wide. What most states have done is to widen these shoulders instead of widening the runway itself. We have taken similar steps.
We closed the airport for 6 months from 8 in the morning to 4 in the evening. The loss has been calculated at 7.6 billion. But what happened after they reconstructed the runway, incurring a loss of 7.6 billion rupees? It has come to a situation where the A380s cannot land there. They had rolled back the previous plan, but the cost has increased by $30 million. It is clear that the anticipated task has not been achieved.
We work for 16 long sleepless hours in night shift to facilitate the construction activities on the runway. But after all of this, if the international aviation authorities are not granting permission for bigger flights to land here, we see this as a massive waste of money. We are asking the government to provide a clarification.
Ironically, the Mattal International Airport has a 4F category certificate from the International Civil Aviation Organization.
A housing complex planned to be provided to public servants now lies in ruins after it was abandoned for over a decade.
The complex was constructed by the Ministry of Public Administration and Management under a project to provide housing for state officials. The houses were constructed based on an agreement reached between the Ministry of Public Administration and Management, the Board of Investment, and a private entity. The plot of land, which spans across an area of over 7 acres, is owned by the BOI and has 576 houses built on it, but locals say these houses were abandoned over 15 years ago. A group has also removed the roofing sheets of these houses in this abandoned complex. According to the Habaradua Divisional Secretary, the private entity that undertook the construction has ownership of these houses. The project carried out to benefit the public servants has been of no use to anyone. The most attractive plot of state land in Habaradua had been given to the private entity for the construction of the complex. They have failed to sell these houses for over 10 years. There were reports that the investor is going to make another investment. This land is bordered to the ocean and the Koggala Lagoon. It is believed that an opportunity will be given to promote this area as a tourist destination.
The Movement for Unity Through Power Sharing convened a media briefing in Colombo today.
Sri Lankan Airlines is searching for a new company to take over services. We saw that they leased out an aircraft to Pakistan Airlines and they weren't even able to pay the lease properly. I believe that one of the aircraft that was leased out was used to transport a passenger who was standing during the flight. The day before yesterday, both the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister were at the airport. The Prime Minister was travelling to Japan while the Finance Minister was travelling to Singapore. The Finance Minister's bags were sent to Malaysia. This is Sri Lankan Airlines. They recently sent someone who was supposed to fly to Jeddah to Riyadh. Sri Lankan Airlines had to pay 3.9 million because of this issue. Sri Lankan Airlines comes under the purview of Minister Kabir Hashim, but he is simply looking on as the company is being destroyed. Who is the chairman? He is a friend of the Prime Minister. A former army officer was appointed as MD over more qualified persons. He also messed up and he is now handling the baggage.
Views were also expressed on parliamentarian Vimal Veerawansa.
With regard to reports that Ranil Wickremesinghe intervening to secure bail for Vimal Veerawansa, for good or for bad, intervening with judicial matters is completely wrong and we condemn it. These are persons who called Ranil Wickremesinghe a traitor and call for him to be hanged. You can ensure that he is treated fairly, but you cannot interfere with the law. Mr. Veerawansa, you have been rejected by the people, so please resign and go back home. He said that if anyone spoke for him or intervened on behalf of him, he would quit politics. Activities that were conducted in the OVDC building will come back to haunt you in the form of a court case. If you are ready, you can face us in an open debate. We are prepared to come out with all the evidence. However, you need to be prepared to go home.
2 of the 6 military intelligence officers arrested over the assault on journalist Namal Pereira were identified today. The suspects were arrested for abducting journalist Namal Pereira in a white van and assaulting him.
An identification parade took place in the presence of the acting magistrate of Colombo, Lanka. The 2 military intelligence personnel identified by the witness were ordered to be remanded until the 26th of April. The remaining 4 suspects were released on sureties of 200,000 rupees each. These suspects were charged with assaulting journalists Keith Noya and Upali Tennakon as well. Journalist Namal Pereira was abducted and assaulted in 2008.
Colombo was buzzing today as the public was seen making final preparations to usher in the Sinhala and Tamil New Year.
Trade fairs and shopping festivals were organized across the country ahead of the Sinhala and Tamil New Year, with the general public drawn towards them due to the attractive prices. This was the situation witnessed in areas such as Anuradhapura, Mathura, Kurunegala and Kandy. This was the situation in the north, the east and the hill country.
Still in local news, the Government Medical Officers Association convened a media briefing today with the Public Services United Nurses Union.
The GMOA has never contributed to toppling governments or the creation of governments. The Minister of Health alleges that the chairman of the GMOA threatened the Director of Health Services. The Director of Health Services is serving in an acting capacity. After he was appointed, the GMOA chairman did not attend any of the meetings. The Secretary and the Executive Officers of the Government Medical Officers Association attended these meetings. We are confused as to how this threat was made. Just because the Minister of Health is acting in one way, the GMOA will not change its stance. They can strike as much as they want. Who will lose in the end? It is your mothers and fathers. No matter how many problems arise, the government will not be moved. They are striking to topple the government. They think that they can topple the government. Not in this lifetime. If they step out with the mentality, we will respond with the same mindset.
Dogs that were regular sight at the University of Sri Javardhanpura have gone missing all at once. What happened to these dogs?
A large number of dogs that were previously seen at the university premises have disappeared. Today, animal rights activists and university students convened a media briefing to elaborate on the matter.
On Saturday and Sunday, based on the instructions of the university administration, around 30 dogs at the university premises were anesthetized and moved in lorries. We performed surgeries to neuter these dogs and took care of them. These dogs have been taken away. This was done upon the instructions of the Vice Chancellor of the university.
I cannot say what was taken away and how many times they were taken away. After the university reopens and after matters return to normal, I will reveal all the details.
The Vice Chancellor also elaborated as to why the dogs were taken away.
There are over 20 documented reports of dog bites during the past 2 months alone. I have made it clear that we can keep them at a corner of the university. If they are kept there, the university can bear the cost to take care of them. The students must agree with it. They must align themselves with the activities of the universities. If there is anyone who can take the 130 plus dogs home and take care of them, they can do so.
You're watching Primetime News.
More news comes your way after these. Taking a look at some sports news now. Chairman of selectors Sanat Jayasuriya says, as a former Sri Lankan batsman, he is very disappointed over the national team's failure to win the series against Bangladesh.
We lost the opportunities that we had to secure a win. We experienced shortcomings in fielding and batting departments. Top order batsmen must play with responsibility. We have spoken on these matters. I believe that when time comes, they will act with responsibility. Angelo Matthews has a great opportunity at hand to play for the Champions Trophy. But he is now in India to play in the IPL.
With that, we wrap up Primetime News. I'm Bernadine Jayasinghe.
I'm Saturang Hapwala. Before we go, you can keep track of all these stories and more on our award-winning website, www.newsfirst.lk. Take care.